The first time I saw her again, she was wearing pearls, sipping champagne, and laughing like the past never happened. My mother, sitting at the head of a long banquet table, surrounded by people who adored her. She raised her glass toward the guests, and when our eyes met across the room, her face changed just for a second. Then she smiled and said loudly, "Look, even the waitress wants attention." But back when I was still her daughter, not her shame, I thought she loved me. I was 13 when everything I understood about family collapsed. We lived in a modest brick house in Savannah, Georgia. My father, Marco Clark, was a first-generation Italian-American who ran a small home repair business. He smelled of pine sawdust and always came home whistling some old Dean Martin tune. My mother, Helen, worked part-time at the library and spent her afternoons combing my hair and asking about my homework. Back then, life was slow and safe, until the day he didn't come home. It was a Tuesday. I remember the sunlight looked too bright, like it didn't know what had happened. My father had fallen from scaffolding at a site and died instantly. There was no goodbye, no final words, just a folded uniform and a funeral card with a smiling face. I was too young to understand what kind of hole that would tear through my world. My mother unraveled within weeks. She'd sit by the window in her nightgown for hours, just staring at the garden. I stopped asking her what was for dinner. I started washing my own clothes. Sometimes she'd cry. Other times she didn't speak at all. 6 months later, I came home from school to find her humming in the kitchen, lipstick on, apron dusted with flour. She was making lemon pie, my father's favorite. I almost cried from the nostalgia. But then she said, "Nina, honey, we're having guests. Ife aim at Shimwin. His name is Dennis. He's coming over tonight." Just like that, Dennis Caldwell showed up with 2 white teeth and a daughter named Kayla. She was 6, blonde, talkative, and immediately adored by my mother. "He brings light into the house," Mom told me that night, as she dabbed perfume behind her ears. "And Kayla needs a stable home. She lost her mother, you know." "But I lost my father," I said. She didn't answer. 2 weeks later, they moved in. It wasn't gradual. Dennis brought boxes. Kayla ran through the halls like she owned them. My room was suddenly too big for one child, and I was moved to the attic guest space. When I came home from school the next day, all my books had been boxed. My desk was gone. "We're redesigning," my mom said casually, flipping through curtain catalogs. What hurt wasn't the change. It was how quickly I became invisible. At dinner, they talked over me. Dennis corrected my manners constantly. Elbows off the table. "Don't chew like that." Kayla would spill juice and giggle, and he'd say, "She's still learning." But when I dropped a fork, he said, "You're 13. No excuse." My mother just sipped her wine and nodded. And then there was Mrs. Caldwell, Dennis's mother. She'd visit every weekend, criticizing everything. One time, I wore my dad's old flannel shirt around the house. She pinched my sleeve and said, "What kind of girl dresses like a lumberjack?" Another time, she caught me reading on the couch. "Lazy posture leads to lazy habits," she muttered, pinching my spine. Mom laughed like it was a joke. The worst came when she'd cut my face with her cold hands and say, "Such a strong jaw for a girl. Are you sure you're not the boy of the house now?" Then she'd pinch until my eyes watered. One night, I looked in the mirror and found a dark bruise blooming on my cheekbone. When I showed Mom, she said, "Don't exaggerate. You bruise like a peach." That was the first night I cried myself to sleep in the attic and realized no one would hear. By the time I turned 14, Kayla had a new bedroom set, violin lessons, and a spot on the cheer squad. I had blisters from walking 2 miles to school because Mom said the gas bill was too high for extra trips. She bought Kayla a pink bike with streamers. Mine had been sold in a garage sale without asking me. I tried to speak up once. I asked if I could join a weekend cooking class at the community center. I'd been watching videos online, secretly collecting recipes in a notebook, dreaming of being a chef one day. Mom barely looked up from folding laundry. Who's going to watch Kayla while you're off playing with knives? I thought maybe Dennis. He works. And Kayla needs stability. You're old enough to help. That was the end of that. Dennis started referring to me as the help. Did the help finish the dishes? Tell the help to clean up Kayla's mess. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then, he started saying it in front of guests. Kayla soaked it up. She began demanding things from me. Juice, snacks, help with homework. Then complained when I got it wrong. You're not smart like my mom, she once said, clutching a spelling book. No wonder Daddy says you'll never get far. I wanted to scream, but instead I just nodded and added another mark to the inside of my closet door, a tally for each time I swallowed a scream. Then came the day everything changed. It was spring, and I'd just returned home early from a canceled field trip. The house was too quiet. I walked into the kitchen and froze. My mother and Dennis were sitting at the table with a man in a suit. On the table, a folder of documents. I caught a glimpse of a name, mine. Full name, social security number, date of birth. What is this? I asked. Mom blinked, startled. Dennis stood up fast. You weren't supposed to see that. What is it? I asked again. A loan application, he said curtly. We're putting the new mortgage under your name. I stared. What? Why would you? It's just paperwork, Mom cut in. You're not really responsible. It's for credit reasons. Temporary. But I'm 14. Almost 15, Dennis snapped. You live here, don't you? Eat our food? Sleep under our roof. I didn't ask for this, I whispered. You're part of the family, Mom said coldly. Act like it. That night I lay awake for hours. I Googled every word on that form. I didn't understand it all, but I understood enough to know they were using me. Not just emotionally, legally, and I had no one to tell. By summer, the changes were more aggressive. Mom canceled my library card. You spend too much time hiding in books. She took my sketchbook and burned it after Kayla claimed I'd drawn a mean picture of her. It was a rabbit, holding a sword. But that didn't matter. The final straw came one afternoon when I came home to find Kayla throwing a tantrum. Her tablet had died mid-game. She screamed for an hour. Instead of comforting her, Dennis barged into the attic, yanked the charger out of my wall and handed it to her. Why do you get to have electricity up here when she's upset? He shouted. I was doing homework. Doesn't matter. You're selfish. That night I called Camila. Camila Ruiz was the only person who still spoke to me like I mattered. We'd met in sophomore year during a group project. She had a quick laugh, curly hair, and a calmness I envied. Her aunt, Teresa, owned a little Italian place downtown. Camila said they were always busy, always tired, but always together. I can't do it anymore, I said into the phone. There was a pause. Then she said, come over. Stay as long as you need. I packed in silence, a backpack, my notebooks, and the only photo I had left of my dad. As I closed the attic door behind me, I heard laughter downstairs. Kayla's, Mom's, Dennis's. None of them noticed I was gone. Camila lived above the restaurant in a small apartment that smelled like cinnamon and basil. Her Aunt Teresa didn't ask me questions the night I arrived. She just looked me in the eyes, handed me a warm plate of gnocchi, and said, You can sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk work. It was the first time in months someone fed me, without a sigh. Rosetta's table wasn't fancy. It had checkered tablecloths, dim lighting, and a chalkboard menu that changed daily. But it pulsed with life, clattering pans, clinking wine glasses, bursts of laughter and music floating from the kitchen. Teresa ran it like a ship captain. Firm voice, sharp eyes, but a heart that beat for food and people. You want to stay here? She asked me the next morning, over coffee. I nodded. Then you'll work. We don't do pity. We do pasta. That was my first lesson in dignity. I started washing dishes, then bussing tables. I burned my hand on a pan, spilled wine on a customer, cried in the walk-in fridge more than once. But every night, I went to bed with aching feet and a full heart. Teresa didn't coddle me, but she saw me. Camila helped me enroll in night classes, so I wouldn't lose school credit. During the day, I memorized sauce ratios and wine pairings. At night, I studied macroeconomics and statistics. I kept a calendar on the wall with stickers: green for work shifts, blue for exams, gold stars for tips over $100. 2 months in, Teresa handed me a key to the studio above the restaurant. "It's small," she warned. "No oven, no AC, but it's yours." I cried. She hugged me, then pretended not to notice. I bought a second-hand mattress, a tiny fridge, a plant named Basil, and called it home. There was no Dennis pounding on the door, no Kayla stealing my things, no cold eyes from my mother, just me, my books, and the soft hum of life downstairs. My first paycheck, I bought myself a pair of kitchen shoes. Non-slip soles, black leather, 100% mine. I stared at them for a long time before I put them on. They felt like armor. The following year blurred into motion. I became a server, then a hostess, then shift manager. Teresa would bark, "Nina, count inventory," or "explain this overhead cost," like she was testing me. But when I got it right, her eyes softened. "You've got a head for this," she said one night. "Better than mine, honestly." She started letting me sit in on meetings with suppliers, watch her renegotiate wine contracts and plan seasonal menus. She taught me how to read people. Watch how they hold the fork. If it's tight, they're nervous. If it's loose, they're open to dessert. I soaked it all in. At 19, I was running Friday night service. At 20, I was helping onboard new hires. At 21, I was officially listed as assistant manager. Meanwhile, I stayed invisible to my mother. Every now and then, I'd hear updates from mutual contacts in Savannah. Kayla had won some academic award. Dennis had gotten promoted. My mother had joined a wine club. Not once did they call. Not once did they ask if I was safe. I stopped waiting. Instead, I built. Camila and I became partners in every sense: business, friendship, even family. We stayed up late designing new concepts, tweaking recipes, and dreaming about expansion. By the time I graduated college with a degree in business management, Teresa pulled me aside with tears in her eyes. "I'm retiring," she said. "This place, it should be yours." We took over Rosetta's table together. Then we opened another location across town. Then a third in the arts district. We hired staff with stories like mine, kids who'd been told they were too much or not enough. We paid well. We listened. We cared. I never spoke of my past. I didn't need to. Every plate of food I sent out was a declaration. I'm not who you said I was. I never was. By 25, I had my name on the lease of 3 thriving restaurants. I wasn't rich, not yet, but I was stable. I paid off all the hidden debt Dennis had racked up under my name, quietly cleaning up the financial mess they left behind without ever telling a soul. It took me almost 4 years to fix my credit score. For years of missed promotions, rejected loan applications, and awkward explanations to banks who looked at me like I was reckless. I wasn't. I was just a daughter they used like a name on a form. But I survived. No, I built. Camila and I had carved out something sacred. Rosetta's table was no longer just a restaurant. It was a place where forgotten people came to feel seen. Elderly women who dined alone but left smiling. Teenagers working their first job who were told they mattered. We hung photos of our staff on the walls. We ran pay-it-forward meal programs for families in need. And most nights I stayed late to wipe down counters, not because I had to, but because I could. Freedom tasted better than any dish on the menu. Then came the reservation. Camila was at her desk reviewing the catering contracts for a corporate gala when she paused, furrowing her brow. Big party Saturday night. 50 guests. Booked under Caldwell engagement. My stomach clenched. Caldwell. I hadn't heard the name spoken out loud in years. I didn't ask questions. I just said, I'll cover the floor that night. Camila looked at me. You sure? I nodded. Let's treat them like any other guest. But I knew. Deep down I knew. Saturday came. The restaurant glowed under warm lights. Wine chilled to the perfect temperature. The tables were dressed in ivory linens, tall candles flickering in glass holders. I stood upstairs in my office, adjusting my name badge on the navy blazer we designed for partners to wear on special occasions. Across the gold embroidery, Nina Clark, co-owner. I walked downstairs just as the guests arrived, and there she was, my mother. Her hair was perfectly curled, lipstick deep mauve, and her signature pearl earrings glinted under the chandeliers. Beside her, Dennis, a little grayer, still wearing that smug air like an accessory, and Kayla, grown, glowing, in a sparkly engagement dress with a man on her arm who looked like he played golf for a living. I froze. Then I smiled. It wasn't fake. It wasn't bitter. It was the smile of a woman who didn't need to prove anything anymore. They hadn't seen me yet. I moved between the tables, checking on servers, nodding at guests, offering wine pairings with practiced ease. The party settled in, laughter growing louder. My mother was holding court at the center table, regaling guests with stories I'm sure were polished for perfection. Then she saw me. Her eyes locked on mine. There was a pause, a flicker, recognition, and then she smiled. But it was the old smile, the cruel one, the one that came before something sharp. Well, well, she said loudly, drawing attention. Even the waitstaff dresses fancy these days. A few chuckles. Then Dennis added, didn't know they let anyone with a name badge serve wine now. Kayla turned. Oh my God, she whispered to her fiancé. That's my stepsister. I approached the table slowly, my voice calm. Welcome to Rosetta's table, I said. My name is Nina. I'll be ensuring everything goes smoothly tonight. My mother leaned back, swirling her glass. You're still doing this? Still playing house in someone else's kitchen? I said nothing. Dennis grabbed a flute of sparkling rose, lifted it toward me, and in one swift motion, tipped it. The cold liquid splashed down my blazer, staining the white shirt beneath. Gasps echoed across the room. Oh no, he said with mock sympathy. I made a mess. Better get someone to clean that up. Kayla laughed. I guess some people never move up. I stood still for 3 full seconds. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out the slim black leather binder, and laid it gently on the table. Camila appeared beside me, silent and composed. According to the service agreement signed upon booking, she said clearly, opening the binder, any verbal harassment or physical misconduct toward staff or owners is grounds for immediate termination of service. Dennis frowned. Owners. Camila turned to him, eyes glinting. Oh, you didn't know? This establishment is co-owned by Nina Clark. You remember her, don't you? Silence. Then I spoke, softly but firmly. You'll need to leave. All 50 guests. Now. Dennis's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother's face drained of color. Kayla sputtered something about her engagement cake. I didn't flinch. Our staff began clearing the tables. Some guests tried to argue. Others just stared. A few pulled out phones. And I stood there, wine still dripping from my sleeve, heart beating steady, finally in control. The restaurant fell into a hush as guests realized what was happening. Some stood awkwardly, glancing between the staff and the party hosts, unsure whether to defend the bride-to-be or slowly distance themselves from the chaos. Others pulled out their phones, pretending to text but recording everything. You could feel the discomfort in the air. Thick, awkward, electric. Dennis tried to stand up tall, straighten his jacket. This is outrageous. We paid good money. Camila didn't even blink. And you signed a contract. Section 5.3. Immediate termination in the event of abuse toward staff or owners. No exceptions. I didn't know she was the owner, he snapped, pointing at me like I was something he stepped in. Camila's voice stayed calm. Now you do. Behind me, two members of our security team stepped into view. Quiet, unmoving. Kayla's fiancé leaned in and whispered something to her. She pulled away and glared. Are you seriously siding with her? I'm siding with the people not getting us thrown out of a restaurant, he muttered. My mother hadn't said a word. She sat there, hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes locked on mine. Her pearls suddenly looked heavier on her neck. Then she finally spoke. You've changed. I tilted my head. No, I just stopped shrinking. The servers cleared the last of the wine glasses. Napkins were refilled. Candles snuffed out. It all happened with quiet precision, like we'd rehearsed this moment for years. Mrs. Caldwell, the woman who used to pinch my cheeks until I bruised, clutched her plate of ravioli like it was a holy relic. You can't take my dinner, she snapped as Miguel gently reached for it. This is harassment. I'm calling the health department, the media, the mayor. Miguel didn't say a word. He simply removed the plate. Red sauce splattered on her blouse. She shrieked like a banshee, flailing her arms as if someone had set her on fire. People started whispering. Phones pointed at her like she was the star of a bad reality show. Dennis turned beet red, fists clenched. You think you're better than us now, he growled, stepping toward me. That's when our security moved. One stepped between us, voice firm. Back away, sir. Another added, Savannah PD is already on the way. You'll want to be calm when they arrive. He froze mid-step. Rage clouded his eyes, but something else flickered behind them, fear. Mom. Kayla cried, do something. But Helen Clark just sat there, mascara streaking down her cheeks, looking older than I remembered. She tried to speak, but no words came. For once, she had nothing to say. The next 30 minutes unfolded like a slow-motion unraveling. The police arrived. Statements were taken. Phones played back recordings. Guests slipped out in clusters, murmuring to each other. Dennis was cuffed and escorted out. Public intoxication, attempted assault, violation of contract. His voice echoed down the block, still protesting. Kayla sobbed in a corner, her perfect engagement smeared with sauce and scandal. Her fiancé stood beside her, arms crossed, silent. He hadn't said a word in 10 minutes. Mrs. Caldwell was last to leave, covered in pasta, holding her heels in her hands, shrieking something about lawyers and Yelp reviews. And me? I stood at the entrance, blazer soaked in rose, arms crossed, not smiling, not gloating, just watching them go. 11 years ago, I left that family's house with a backpack and $43 in crumpled bills. Now they were leaving mine, escorted out the front door, reputation shattered, pride bleeding on the pavement. Camila came up beside me. You okay? I looked at her. More than okay. We stood there in the doorway of our restaurant, two women who had built everything from nothing. The applause came a few seconds later from the bar, where several regulars had watched everything unfold. It started with one slow clap, then another, then a wave of cheers like a toast to justice. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't revenge. It was liberation. 3 days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then another call, and another. By the 5th one, I picked up, more out of curiosity than concern. Nina. The voice was small, uncertain. It was my mother. Please don't hang up, she rushed. I need to explain. I didn't say anything. It's about Dennis. They're pressing charges. He could lose his job. You have to do something. I hung up. And then the online post started. First, my mother's. A dramatic Facebook post dripping in false remorse and fabricated details. My estranged daughter, who I've tried to love through all her bitterness, ambushed our family at my stepdaughter's engagement. We were humiliated, publicly, over nothing. Then Kayla joined in, her Instagram story a carousel of carefully edited photos of the dinner, cropped just before the wine hit me. She added text. Some people just can't stand to see their little sister happy. I didn't respond. Camila texted me that night. We knew this was coming, but we're not letting them twist the truth. And she was right, because what they didn't know was that Rosetta's table had one of the most advanced security systems in the district, installed after a burglary attempt 3 years ago. Teresa insisted on it. HD cameras, motion-sensitive microphones, and auto backups every night. We had everything. The moment Dennis poured the wine, Kayla's laughter, my mother's insult, the plate pulled from Mrs. Caldwell's hands. Every word, every look. I clipped the footage, just the essentials. No edits, no captions, no music, just the truth. Then I posted it, not with rage, not with a caption calling anyone out. Just, here's what actually happened. It exploded. By morning, the video had been shared across Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and food industry forums. Former guests commented things like, I've eaten there for years. This doesn't surprise me. That place runs on respect. As someone who's been disowned, this hit me in the gut. Nina's face when she says, you'll need to leave, chills. And then came the duets, TikToks, voiceovers, people acting out the scene like it was a movie. Memes of Mrs. Caldwell clutching her pasta with the text, not my ravioli. Food bloggers called it the pasta scandal. News outlets picked it up. Within 48 hours, it became a national story. Local restaurant owner shuts down abusive family at daughter's engagement party on camera. Even Rosetta's table trended on Yelp. And my family? They couldn't delete fast enough. My mother removed her post, but screenshots were everywhere. Kayla made her account private. Mrs. Caldwell's church suspended her from her volunteer position pending behavior review. Dennis's firm released a vague statement about internal review procedures. And the wedding? Cancelled. The venue didn't want the negative attention. The caterer pulled out. The fiancé? He went silent and then reportedly moved out. The fallout came fast. Sharp. Cold. Just like the silence they used to weaponize against me. And through it all, I didn't say a word. I showed up to work. I cleared tables. I trained new staff. I wiped down menus. And every so often, a guest would come up and whisper, "You did the right thing." Or hug me. Or cry. It was overwhelming. But it was real. I wasn't a waitress anymore. I wasn't the invisible attic girl. I wasn't the girl who got pushed aside for a shinier daughter. I was the woman who owned the building. The video didn't just trend, it lived. It lived in comment sections where strangers shared their own stories of being scapegoated daughters, discarded siblings, overlooked children. It lived in DMs from women twice my age saying, "I wish I had stood up to my family when I had the chance." It lived in every, "You're an inspiration," from people I'd never met but somehow knew exactly how I felt. Within a week, our reservations tripled. Food bloggers reviewed us with new eyes, calling Rosetta's table a rare place where the food is rich, but the story behind it richer. One influencer called it the revenge restaurant and posted a mock menu with items like karma carbonara and pasta alla payback. We laughed. We leaned in. We printed T-shirts. But behind the humor, the fallout for my family was undeniable. Dennis was demoted, stripped of his team, his privileges, and his corporate credit card. Rumor had it he had to move out of their suburban house and into a rental. Kayla deleted all her social media and went silent. No wedding. No public apology. Just silence. As for my mother, she tried to pivot. She made one final Facebook post. It read, "Sometimes love makes you blind. I only wanted both my daughters to be happy. I never imagined this is how the world would learn our story." The comments were not kind. Gaslighting 101. You ignored your daughter for years, and now you're surprised she succeeded? She didn't make a scene. You did. She just made sure people saw it. The internet didn't let her escape the truth. But the real shift wasn't online. It was inside me. One night, after closing, I stood alone in the middle of the restaurant. The chairs were flipped, the lights low. The air smelled like garlic and lemon and something old and safe. I looked around at everything I had helped build, the photos of our team, the quiet strength in every detail. And I thought of her, of Helen Clark, the woman who used to kiss my forehead at bedtime, who braided my hair and read me stories, who taught me how to set a table with the forks in the right order, and then sat by while that table was used to humiliate me. She had made her choice, over and over. People asked me if I wanted to reconcile, if I would take her back now that everything had changed. But the truth is, I had already grieved her, not in one loud moment, but in 1,000 tiny silences. Every birthday ignored, every milestone missed, every cry that went unanswered. By the time she called me a waitress in my own restaurant, I wasn't angry. I was done. The last time she called, I answered, not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I needed to close the door myself. "Nina," she said softly, like the past hadn't happened. I was just thinking about how things ended, about Kayla, about you. Silence. "I didn't know," she continued. "I didn't know it would go so far." I waited. "I'm sorry. I truly am. I didn't realize you were hurting that much." I took a breath. "You didn't want to know." She fell quiet. "I was a child," I said, "and I begged for your attention. I screamed for your protection, and all you gave me were closed doors and cold shoulders. Nina, please, can't we fix this?" I looked out the window. The city lights flickered, soft and golden, reflecting in the wine glasses we'd just washed. "No," I said, not with anger, but with certainty, "because I'm not broken anymore." She didn't hang up. She didn't cry. She just went quiet, and I ended the call. I haven't heard from her since. The video stayed pinned to our page, not for publicity, not to hurt anyone, but as a marker, a reminder that sometimes the happy ending isn't reunion. It's release. It's choosing not to go back into a house where you were only ever a shadow. It's building a table so long and wide that people like you, forgotten, discarded, underestimated, always have a seat. Today, Rosetta's table is more than a restaurant. It's where the girl who once cried herself to sleep in an attic apartment now signs paychecks, trains leaders, and makes space for others to rise. It's where we serve forgiveness in small bites, but reserve the whole feast for those who earn it. Some families are chosen. Some bridges are meant to burn. And sometimes your peace is worth more than their apology.